I think the problem has been mostly the development experience, right? Have something that can be adopted in a way that it feels intuitive, right? Because at the end of the day, everyone is trying to figure out what is the best way, the right way to use agentic coding, to use AI for engineering, right? And it is still a work in progress, right? Right now, the next evolution is adapting agile software development, Scrum, right? We can say Scrum or SAFe or any other agile methodology to this new era, right? And it's been the push that it's been done, I believe, right?
Hey everybody, welcome to CTO Confidential. I am here with Raul Proenza, who I have personally worked with and has worked for Cause of a Kind, but I also worked with him at the Not Worldwide, and we've been friends for many years now. And we're going to catch up today on AI tooling kind of from the start. We've already been going a little bit, so I had to stop and start the recording because I think everything here is kind of relevant to everybody's journey into this AI wormhole that we're all in. And Raul is an exceptional software engineer. I remember because he aced the interview coming into the Knot. And so you are one of those people, Raul, that AI comes out and maybe not at the beginning, but now all that coding skill feels like, wait, what the heck am I going to do with all of this? And so I always start there, man. What's the perspective? How are you feeling about AI? Because you're psyched on it like I am, but I think a lot of folks aren't. So we should chat about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mike, for that welcoming. You are definitely a good friend and happy to be here sharing about our biggest passion, which is software engineer, right? Like you said, I'm a software engineer. I have been working in the field as a professional for almost 18 years now, getting old. And right now, I'm very excited about AI, because it's the cool thing, it's the fashionable thing, it's because it's really a landmark in the history, right, of software engineering as a whole. So I have been using, of course, AI indirectly for a few years now, starting with GitHub Copilot. That was the big deal and the precursors to open to general availability, right? AI. But after that, of course, using or exploring other tools, other machine learning models and agentic coding tools, right? I landed into what I think is the biggest, our more complete competitor today, who are seriously working with agentic coding, right? And which is Claude Code from Anthropic. So yeah, that's where we are right now. Super excited of everything that is happening, and yeah, looking forward every day to learn more.
I definitely remember starting with Copilot and really enjoying it. And it's amazing to me that I don't use Copilot at all anymore. Like just completely useless to me. Like I have zero, but like that tab complete was cool. But it's interesting to me. Like, I don't know if you had this experience, but I had this experience where I liked GitHub Copilot. And then I tried Cursor, which was like GitHub Copilot on steroids, which was like tab autocomplete across files. And I hated that. I go, whoa. I was like, if I'm going to tab complete, I do want to be typing and like putting the code in the right place. Because I remember getting off track and then never being able to get back. I'd be like, no, I want you to undo that, but leave that. And it was too confusing. And then I kind of did a more controlled chat-based flow. And then I went all in on the agent. Then it was Claude Code, or it was Z agents. And then I went to Claude Code because it was cheaper for the same experience. And now I'm like using Vim, and I'm like using NeoVim and Claude Code. I've ditched all IDE because I'm like, when I'm in the IDE, I don't want any of the pop-ups or anything, because now I'm like going to really write the code. Otherwise, I'm using Claude to drive.
Yeah, definitely. I think the problem has been mostly the development experience, right? Have something that can be adopted in a way that it feels intuitive, right? Because at the end of the day, everyone is trying to figure out what is the best way, the right way to use agentic coding, to use AI for engineering, right? And it is still a work in progress, right? Right now, the next evolution is adapting agile software development, Scrum, right? We can say Scrum or Safe or any other agile methodology to this new era, right? And it's been the push that it's been done, I believe, right, in the industry is that to go to the B-bounce model, which is more or less reducing the whole software development life cycle from, the planning, you have the research, business analysis, planning, implementation, testing, release, maintenance, right? It's all that is being compacted to something more focused to, okay, we're going to focus on the beginning and we're going to focus on the end. And the beginning is you still interacting with the AI, getting requirement, refining requirement, going through A cases, all that kind of things, defining the test suite and all the details. But you are there, right? The AI is helping you to speed up all that analysis that took you a lot of time, right? And iterations to a whole thing to do that, right? To just minutes, right? And then you are, because this is the point. When you were saying, what are we going to do with all our experience? This is it, right? This is it. Now you are going to use all your hands-on experience, all your earned scars, right? In the battle. You are going to use it now because you have that in your mind. You know what to ask. You know when it is incomplete. You know what to take care about. Okay, and how are we going to do monitoring and alerting? Are we taking in consideration here things like distributing tracing? And what about this? And what about that, right? Because AI is great, but at the end of the day, AI is a business. So they are not in the business of getting the best answer at any cost. No.
Right.
They are going to find, like the Dijkstra algorithm, right? The shortest path to point A to B. And that's it, right? And then it is on you to push it to the extra mile, because otherwise it's just going to be average. And that's it, right? If you are a great engineer, you will have great output. If you are an average engineer, you will have a trashy output, right?
Yeah. Well, this is for sure what my experience is like. If you tell it to do it, there are times when it will just say, oh, and we don't need to do that right now. Like it definitely like tries to short circuit the task sometimes. And you're like, wait, no, you definitely do need to do that right now. Like that's
exactly.
not optional. So it's, and you have to have like a sense. And I brought this up on other shows where you have to have this sense of what's going wrong. And I bring up this same example because it's the most common one, where like I'll get into a UI flow and it's like, it fixes this thing and then this thing breaks. And then it fixes this thing and then this thing breaks. And you're like, okay, you are very clearly using too much state management and you need to organize this into like a finite state machine. But I notice it from the use of the program instead of reading the code line by line, if that makes it, so I think there's this big talk about, do we need to read the code anymore? And my answer is, well, it depends, right? Sometimes you do. But more important, I think, is you need to use the program and have your kind of break cases in your mind of, what if I do this? What if I do this? And hit those and kind of keep probing for, you have to have this intuitive sense. And that's where I think that mid-level versus senior engineer starts to show.
Definitely. So at the end of the day, just thinking that when we were coding completely manually, no intervention of any help, right? And you are hands-on, the first iteration, first implementation is like the super crappy MVP version, right? You have a code that is not elegant, it's not optimized, it's missing edge cases and whatever, right? Okay, that's fine. And then you push that to make it work. And then you start cleaning up. Then you start making sure the drive and other good practices are applied. Good, right? Then you start making sure this is unit tested. So you have meaningful tests that are covering all the important workflows, happy path, sad path. Good, right? And then you start to thinking, okay, how this is going to work in different environments, because they have different data sets, they have different configuration, they have, you name it, they have caveats that you need to take in consideration. Great, right? No, the same happened with the code written by AI, right? But the difference here is that because AI is so quick and AI can take more complexity at once, it produces more output. So it's really hard for us, like it was before, to go to a big PR and have a sense like, okay, what are we trying to solve here from a business perspective? Okay, now I have a clear idea what is the goal. How are we solving it from a technical standpoint? Okay, is this matching our architecture? Is this matching our coding style and this and that, all that stuff? Great, right? A pain in the ass when you need to review a pull request of 85 code changes. This is like impossible, right? Who do that, right? Almost no one. Realistically speaking, no one do that.
Nobody.
Right?
I know. I love when people bring that up and they're like, "Oh, well, a big PR." I go, "Don't lie to me. You don't have to lie to me.
Don't lie. So what people do when they have a common sense and you have the intuition, right? Over time, you develop this intuition. So you go, okay, let me check where this was done. When this was done, then okay, do we have unit testing for this? Let me sample. This is what the most, what people do, serious people do, is just sampling. Okay, when you have this big chunk of code, right, and you trust the engineer that is producing that, are you checking, okay, do we have unit tests? Are the unit tests passing? And this is where we need to go and check the foundations haven't lived yet our life. And the foundations are good CI/CD, right? Good instrumentation. So is your code building? You have CI/CD for that, right? Is your code, your unit test passing? Is the unit test coverage, being met? Great, right? And all that sort of things. So you have a smoke test also protecting your code before it gets merged. You have a smoke test for integration and a smoke test for end-to-end test and unit testing. Great. Now I feel comfortable that at least you are not introducing a bug, right? And there are more into this, but basically this is continuous integration and deployment, right? Must to be nowadays your priority in order to ship securely any feature. And yeah, there is more into this, security, all that kind of things. But if you don't have the basics there, you are just gambling.
Well, this is interesting because I've run into a few companies now that we've helped. And this brings like another area, because a lot of engineers ask me like, where's the work today? And there are so many companies that we meet that have not used CI/CD. They're like, they don't do it. They have one guy who's been there for 20 years, and now the business management is like, I'm hearing about AI. I want to get more out of it. I want to get more out of this guy. How can we do this? And they're like, but things are breaking and he doesn't trust it. I go, well, of course, there's no CI/CD. He operates without tests. There's all these issues of, we have to do all this stuff that we did that other industry, like the rest of software engineering, or at least like the startups and kind of like in the modern forefront, were doing for the last 10, 15, 20 years. But you've kind of fallen by the wayside. So if you're still like FTPing files over, AI is not going to be for you, because you're going to run into bugs. You're bound to create problems that way.
Exactly. And, there are many profitable companies, big companies, right? They are even owned by the trust funds and they haven't grown technically as much as they should, right? But they are making the big bucks. Now, the problem with that kind of company is that now we are on this rush of adopting. You need to embrace AI. Otherwise, AI is going to embrace you. No question about it, right? The problem is that, again, strong foundations. You don't have anything of the things that we mentioned, right? Now you are into trouble, because every time you make a change, something breaks. And you don't have a way to foresee that or to prevent it, to proactively find out, hey, yes, we are fixing here, or we are enhancing this feature, but now we are breaking something else, right? And there is no way around. It's like there is a book for this kind of things. It's the refactoring, right? I don't remember the author, but you should follow the same
Martin
technique.
Fowler, I think.
Exactly.
Or is it Kent Beck? Yeah. I've got the refactoring in the other room. I've got refactoring Ruby. I've got the Ruby version of the same book. That's
exactly. So I have the JavaScript version. I love it.
It's very important. People don't want to read that stuff anymore, but I'm like, listen, it's more important than doing the language books. Like, I used to spend a lot of time reading language books, and now I spend all my time with these architecture books. It's a very different scenario.
Exactly. So what I will do in those scenarios is like, perfect. You want to get the most out of AI. You want to increase productivity. predictability, productivity, and all that kind of good things, you can get there, but you need to suffer the pain of hardening whatever you have today. So you need to do it. You can do it with AI, because right now, moving a code base from a programming language to another one, easy peasy, right? It's not trivial, but it can be done quickly in the fraction of time that it used to take. Great. You could do it the same right now. You don't have unit testing? Let's get there, right? You don't have end-to-end testing? Let's get there, at least the critical, business critical parts. And then after you have that insurance layer, literally the insurance is in the word, right? QA insurance or assurance is, well, kind of
yeah. You need both.
That. You need both, right? So after you get there, you start, picking up the pace. But yeah, that's a great topic. I love it.
It really is. It's so funny how the old will become new. And I find myself like diving more into other things like deployments and servers, because AI kind of helps, but you run into all these like tuning issues now. You're like, oh, well, like I'm running out of memory here, and what's the best service there? And it knows so much about everything that you start to like, you could optimize in ways that you didn't think you could before, where you're like, I wouldn't have normally got around to that, but now that I got all the features built, I'm going to actually tell, like, one of the best optimizations that I make for like every project now is admin dashboards. I feel like I'm just admin dashboard crazy. Client asks me all the time, like, can I get that number? Can I get that? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to build an admin path, put everything in there for you, and you can get the health of the whole system. And then it helps me too, because whenever they come and they say this thing's broken, I'm like, go into the admin dashboard, figure out what's wrong. I had all sorts of, like, we're doing, I was telling you, we're doing that automotive app with credit checks, and there's like test back credit checks for like these test users. But the API that's given to us is kind of shaky. It's not that great. But I was like, all right, I want integration tests for all of these that hit the testing. And I want you to add to the admin panel so that before the client calls me and says that this is broken, they can click it and they could see that I'm going to tell you that it's also like they could see that it's broken on the downstream end. And then again, I'm building things with LLMs. So a lot of things, like a very common use case I have now is upload an image and return me some JSON data from that image. And every now and then, like Claude, like deprecated Haiku 4 point whatever it was, and I had to upgrade it. And you can't, that isn't a package, so it didn't, it wouldn't have come through Dependabot. It wasn't really like unit testable. It was like a thing that basically someone has to run into the error and I have to hit it. But again, I go, well, I'm not going to wait to run into this error. Let me build a dashboard that gives like green lights on all of the different LLMs we're using, and it'll do a regular ping and it'll let me know before a customer gets to it. Things like that, I found you maybe wouldn't have put in an MVP, but now you are, because you're like, okay, I have time to make this really great.
No, yeah. Definitely it's a time saving, right? So I have been using AI, right, in multiple things that have saved me hours, days, weeks of work, right? For instance, one cool use case is that troubleshooting something in production. It was time consuming, even when you have all the bookmarks about any potential dashboard or logs page that you could need, right? So for instance, a normal use case is that I have a problem in production, right? I'm page, then from page I go to new relic, from new relic I go to the dashboard, from the dashboard I drill down into what is the error, what is the log, give me the trace of this specific role so I can see all the logs, all the downstream services, like you were saying, right? I have a specific use case similar to that, where I have a payment orchestrator service, which is an abstraction of the real payment service, which is an abstraction of a bunch of crap, right? But most of the time I have a problem and it's not in my end. So it's not my code, it's not my service, it's not my data, it's not my configuration, it's nothing. It's the downstream service. But that, figuring out where was the problem, segmentating where was the problem, right? In the past, that was, if you have everything, you have the intuition, you are real quick, right? Minimum 10 minutes, right? Just going through the places. Nowadays, what I'm using? I'm using CLI tools, I'm using NCPs, I'm using Claude Code, I have an skill, and I have an SOP, and that's it. What I do is, okay, I have a problem on this system. This is the symptom, a couple of screenshots, whatever I have, right? An ID of the incident report. Let's go, right? A few seconds later, I have a very exhaustive report correlating. Okay, yeah, the problem was this and was that, and this was the release, and this is the feature flag that has or created dependency on this behavior, and probably is the feature flag, or is this or is that. To troubleshoot and have 100% certainty, do this, do that, do that. Okay, crap. This is like when you compute that to a whole organization, right? A bunch of engineers providing support to P1 events. How much does that cost, right?
Oh my! I remember that. Like you'd have a full outage, and you would be working. And again, you check the status pages of all the third-party services. You'd have to find all of those. If those were still green, then you'd have to go to X or Twitter at the time, and you just see if anyone else has experienced the outage because you couldn't trust their page. And you'd have to do all this like weird because like the more downstream stuff you have, the harder it is to debug because you're like, okay. If nobody deployed any code, you can be reasonably assured it's probably not your code, but there's something else going on. But if you have 3, 4, 5 services, which one is failing for who, especially if it's intermittent? But this is also one area where I've found that LLMs will sometimes give me a suggestion where your engineering sense comes in again, where I would say like a non-engineer would just be like, yeah, I told it to fix it and it didn't fix it. It did like, and you're like, yeah, well, if you looked at its thing, you kind of were like, wait a minute, that's not possible. And then of course, like Claude does the classic, you're absolutely right. Like this, like, so you do still need that, like that little bit of an intuition to be able to understand like, okay, these are the bug reports I'm looking for. And these are the correlations I would be making. I would check the logs for this IP address. And this, so you don't realize how much of that little bit of engineering knowledge you're putting into your prompt to get the right thing out of it. And I think that's the other side of it is kind of keeping that in sync, that it's helping you become much more powerful. Now, the follow up to this is, what do you think about training juniors though? Because you've trained quite a few people. I've trained quite a few people. You know, I'm at a loss for whether people should be diving into the AI first, whether they should be hand coding first. I'm not sure where this ends up actually.
Well, two schools of thoughts on this, right? First, the classical training, you need to keep it, right? You need to go through that. It's like in modern warfare, right? Yes, we are going to probably land here in this enemy country, and you won't have to fight anyone, right? Because all the aircraft, all the bombarding, all the things that happen. Okay, that's great. But you need to go through basic training. You need to know how to survive. You need to know how to, protect yourself if you get hurt, that kind of things, right? Same for software engineering. You need to go through all the basics in order to know what to do, in order to know what is good versus what is bad. If you don't know the night, you will not appreciate the sun, the light, right? For you, it's not different. There is no difference. So you don't know better. So that must to happen. Now, what is definitely happening is that right now, classic software engineering is evolving. So you need to know about architecture, about the patterns, but don't be fixated about a programming language, a framework, right? Nothing like that. You need to know techniques. You need to have this architect mindset where you know a general problem, but not for specific situations. It's for, you are very generalistic, right? And at the end of the day, the thing is like, when we should start focusing on system and systematization, in the sense like the software development lifecycle will remain the same, more or less. You are going to just be doing different things. For instance, statistically speaking, I make a research, right, that prove that what we should be doing in the first stage for the requirements with AI augmented discovery is going to help you. What is going to help you? If you use it in the right way, AI identifies from 30 to 50% more edge cases, right? Easier than any manual analytic process, right? Any analysis, any product owner, any business analyst is going to take them a lot of time to do that. Now, what is the best way to do it? That's the question, right?
Yep.
That's the problem.
I agree.
You need to provide context. You need to do the proper management. You still being the driver of this car, right? But someone must to be trained too. So at the same time, you are applying all your hard-learned lessons. You need to have someone shadowing you, right? Learning, giving you different perspective, and being sure, right? This doesn't depend on you, right? And definitely doesn't depend on AI because we are not yet there, right? The same when we are going to do the architecture, right? Okay, we use AI, but you need to get the most out of AI. Let me give you a simple example of what I am doing right now. Right now, I have a skill that is augmenting AI in planning mode. So I have let's say, an epic or a feature, right, written down, and I use my AI and my skill, which is going to create an exhaustive plan, but it's going to do it in 3 different ways. First, it's going to gather all the information that I have. So it has the access to Figma, it has access to Jira, it has access to the database, it has access to many things, right? So normally that is a problem in software development. Information is fractured, right? Some people have in Confluence, in Jira, and here in Figma, and here in the instant chat message, right? It's a mess, right? And that evolves. You discover things, clarifications are made, changes are requested, and that's still fractured, right? So AI should be able to do it, but it should be able to do it because you have also your system configured, right? Systematized to do it. Never make an assumption, right? We are going to start working on this. Go again, find the context, and make sure this is still relevant. Awesome. You see? So when you are doing your architecture decision and design, all that is fed into the skill, and the skill is going to, that's the first stage. It's a multi-phase or multi-layer process, right? 3 different independent agents, right? Part of this agent team will be working in 3 different plans, but with 3 different techniques, right? So I have configured different plugins, right? I have a super cloud, I have super power, and I have another one that is escaping my mind, right? And all those plans are created with the same context, with the same information, so they have the same capabilities, right? Or the same context, great. But using different techniques. Then I have an agent that is going to be playing the devil advocate, but not in like, oh, go there and, start poking holes and let's pray this do a good job. No. I make a deep research using multiple things. I use Claude Code, of course, deep research. I use Perplexity. I use Gemini. I use ChatGPT, right? To basically, with a meta prompting technique, right, do a deep research about this topic. Okay, what are the best studies, frameworks, techniques, right, to do adversarial something. It's a complex thing to me to say, but right. you see the point, right? Then I synthesize that and I basically feed it to create the agent, the skill, right, that will be doing this process independently, going and checking each of these 3 plans, right, and making sure they are the best of its kind. So there is no ambiguity, there is no assumption, there is nothing. Everything is factual driven, facts.
So this is interesting. So you're kind of doing 3 different plans, 3 different techniques, and then ultimately you're picking one that you're going to execute on. You're using all 3.
No. So this phase, so the 3 plans are created, right? Are finished. We have this agent that is going to go and review each one and critique and ask questions, interact with each of these 3 agents, right? Mm-hmm. So there is a one-to-one and bi-directional conversation between agent 1 and plan 1 and this devil advocate. And
so you have agents speaking to one another, basically.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, the output is, okay, we have 3 best of its kind independent plans, right? That they could have, matching options or directions, right? Or solutions, but you don't know yet. No. Now, the next phase is to review these plans and synthesize it, right? So we are going to get all that, keep the best of each one, right? And create a unique unified plan, synthesized plan.
Got it.
And,
You bring them all together.
Exactly. It's like the funnel. And now we will do another adversarial review of this. The agent is going to check this one again and find poke holes, okay, challenge things, great. Now we have this synthesized version, right? Now we have a final outcome, a final plan. So what this is doing at the end of the day is augmenting your AI capabilities, but not taking what normally you do is you have all this context, you take a picture here, you maybe download a PDF there, you do this Control C, Control V there, right? You feed all that and you say, okay, I have this feature, I need to plan a solution. You have your agent in plan mode, right? Because you don't want to write anything, you want to create a plan, and that guy is going to do its best and give you a plan. And then you need to review it, because that's the other part, right? And I forgot to mention there is a phase that you have the outcome, you need to review it. If that's good, the final artifact is created. And on every step of this process, right, every artifact is kept there, because you need to audit, you need to check it, because you need to measure the quality and the accuracy of every process, of every step along the way, right? So you can improve it. This keep moving, this keeps improving, right? So that's the deal. Short, to land this plane, what we are trying to do is do not use AI like if this was, just this pencil. No. You have as many pencils as you want, right? This is the matrix. You need to exploit this.
Right.
The
trade-off here you could even build you could build a fourth planning agent, a fifth plan. Like you could come up with new. Now, let me ask you this: to get the devil's advocate, are you doing all of this in Claude Code? Like, what's the tooling that gets the two agents talking to each other?
Yes. So Claude Code today supports agent team, right? So what the agent team does is you have literally independent agents working together. So you have an orchestrator, which is the master agent, which is in the main session, right? Each agent is spawned in its own independent session. So what you are doing with this, or what you are gaining with this, is that you are not limited to your session context, right? Which before was 200K, now is
a million. I know, it's crazy.
Right? That's crazy. That's great. Another conversation, but we will still hit in that limit eventually.
Right. We're going to hit 2 million.
We're going to find a way. But all right. Now, these agents, teams, the difference between sub-agents that you can find everywhere now, right, is that they have bidirectional communication. They can communicate with the parent or orchestrator, but they can communicate in between each other too, right? And they do more, right? But that's what is happening. They are started with the context, with the master prompt, with the goal, and they are communicating back to the orchestrator or the team leader, right? What is
Got it. You see, you have the team lead. They're going to look at the three plans. They're going to synthesize everything. Here's the question now: your three planners. What are the three different styles that you use? Because I've noticed that too. Like when I started planning with Claude Code, it'll be like kicking off 3 planning agents. And usually I assume, because I don't see exactly what Claude Code's doing under the hood, but it seems to say, like, I'm going to look at this section of the code base. I'm going to look at this section of the code base. Like, I'm going to look at the back end. I'm going to look at the UI. Yeah. I'm going to look at this, and then we'll bring it. So what are your kind of 3 planning prompts or the 3 agents you like to spawn?
Yes, absolutely. So that's a good point, because this is what I was oversimplifying everything to make it short. But at the end of the day, every agent, right, has the ability to use different personas and different sub-agents. So that is growing in complexity, because at the end of the day, each plan needs to take in consideration, what is going to look the front-end design, right? What is going to look the API. So I have multiple agents and multiple personas, right, responsible, configured to be an expert on different areas or different parts of the software development lifecycle. So what is happening, this is like a ripple effect, right? You have the lead is spawning the team, and the team is spawning sub agents, right? Which are expert on whatever they need to do. And at the same time, each sub agent is using a bunch of tools, right? For doing research, for doing performing database queries, gathering information from Jira or Rally or Trello, right? Depending of the project, and analyzing the code, the architecture, other things, right? Another technique that I'm using lately that I found super useful is that when I go into a big code base, right? You have multiple repositories, multiple microservices, multiple web clients, applications. You have the infrastructure as a code somewhere else, and monitoring, alerting somewhere else, and you name it, is there, right? What I do, I clone everything under one directory. I use GitHub CLI, right? I use Claude Code, and I scan everything. I organize it. I prepare my Cloud MD file, and I add some configurations there. Why? Because every time you are making an impactful decision, every time you are designing a solution that is not trivial, right? You need to consider what you don't know, what you don't remember, what you don't have on top of your mind, right? So for that reason, I start at that level. I don't go to, okay, we are working with the payment service. And let's start in this directory, right? At this level, and let's start designing the solution. That's crazy. You don't know what you don't know, right? So that is also another augmentation of the faithfulness, right? And reliability of any planning or any design. And this can be applied to anything, right? When you are going to work with the implementation, there are another techniques that you can apply there, but you need to augment that, because at the end of the day, you need to have the right answer or solution everywhere, every time. Right?
That's for sure. That's for sure, because not everything's a mono repo. That for greenfield projects now, I start everything kind of in and that's one of my biggest why I've advocated for Rails lately, is because the monolith and the AI seems to just fit together so nicely. But most of the stuff we work on has been through the last 20 years of microservices. Everything should be microservices. So what I'll do is the same thing. I'll make a directory and I'll clone all the repos in, and I'll have a Claude MD file in that directory that's this is the universe of software that you have to work in, and then because then you have to coordinate the back end with the front end deploy, and these two things are going to happen separately. And in a recent example is I built this Calendly clone called Uncal that we made open source. I have a private deployment that's for Justin and I on our Cause of a Kind domain, but I also released a SaaS version, which uses a gem I built called Sassify that will take the open source piece and tenant it so that people can purchase and do the Stripe thing and do a landing page and all of that. I have those in one directory. So anytime I release a new feature, it gets to the open source version, then it'll roll it out downstream to my private version, and then it'll roll it out to the SaaS version, all of which have their own CI/CD and can work. And so that wrapper directory approach, as opposed to saying go to .. go up a directory and go over, put things that are related in the same directory, and then you can let it know about the universe of stuff that you're working on.
Exactly. I love it.
It's wild, but again, there are things like building the gem itself. I would probably not have gone previously when we were hand coding. I may not have done that. I may not have been I want to make it so that I can use this for all. Had this idea of any open source repo that I build in Rails that I want to turn into SaaS. I want a gem that I could just drop in and do. I probably wouldn't have gone through that work unless I had 2, 3, or 4 projects that I was looking to do that for. But instead I was I'll do it now, because maybe I will, maybe I won't, I don't know. And so I now I have a useful gem that I can do for that. And then again, the other thing is CLI scripts, and I have all sorts of stuff, and I've got nice progress bar. Everything is beautiful now. All my CLI scripts are beautiful. I've got I just got icons and upload bars and things that I never would have done in the past. I was all the software is great. And so there's like a leveling up. And I was kind of saying this to someone. I go, I think that the other thing that's happening as a result of AI is the bar for great software is going up. Whereas previously we had this idea of like, just release an MVP. It doesn't even have to look good, which maybe still is true for a period of time. I feel like now the bar kind of jumped a little because we have the ability. It's like, okay, you got there in a day. Why don't you take another 3 days and make it look a little bit better? like make people feel comfortable about using this thing. The bar for good software has been raised because we can get through things so quickly. Now it is like one of the things I had talked to Justin about on one of our stand-ups was I feel like the aesthetic is going to be the thing that makes people pick a piece of software now, where it's like, well, anybody could make that. So they're going to pick the one that looks the best. You know, like there's a million cars out there that I could pick. At some point, it's like, I just want to pick the one I like.
Yeah, absolutely. The parity, between number of features and if they work or not, performance, all that kind of thing, it's going to close every time. It's going to close even further, right? So at certain point, it's going to be about the reputation. It's going to be about how does it look? How does this make me feel? If this is actually like, do I like this brand? Actually, things like that, right? We are far yet, but we are going into that direction, I think, right? Because everything is so easy. For instance, right now I'm doing more than programming with AI. I'm developing an application and doing the go-to-market, all the advertisement, all the marketing, right? With the AI, things that are super complex and trying to be methodical and based on the good practices, all that kind of things. But this is something that before I needed to hire a company, right? An expert to do that. A company or an expert at least, right? And now it's so easy producing content, having a pipeline automated for going there, do a deep research and systematize that until the funnel gives you, okay, here are the prompts to generate the images. Here is the script for the video. Here are the posts in all your social network, right? It's like, what? And when you read the content, it's like, okay, this is on the dots. And it's SEO optimized, it's a platform optimized. It's like crazy, right?
Well, that's how we're able to produce the podcast so quickly. And I think this is one thing that again, like another thing I mention to people go, well, AI is eliminating jobs. And I go, no, I don't think so. I was like, a lot of the software projects I've taken this year, I just wouldn't have taken before. It's not like I said, listen, I can do this very quickly myself. AI could do this. I simply wouldn't have taken the project because there wouldn't have been enough meat on the bone for me to pay someone to do it. And now there is. So people using AI can scrape up some more of these gigs. And the same with our podcast. We release every single day. We edit incredibly quickly. We actually release the same day a lot of times that we record. And people go, oh, well, you would have hired a studio. I go, no, I wouldn't have. It just would not have existed. I was like, I do not have extra money to hire a podcast. That money did not exist. And so a lot of people don't realize that, like, when I think about it, there is wealth being created by virtue of us performing service and servicing clients and doing things ourselves that simply would not have existed without AI to begin with. Because the cost was just too high. There was it was time consuming work, and there was no way that you could get anybody to do it for a reasonable rate.
Yes, absolutely. The entry barrier was too high. There is no way you could afford it or you could get into that industry without years of experience and training or a ton of money. This is like internet, right? It's a huge power, democratized, great, right? Is everyone going to take advantage of that? Absolutely not. If everyone will use the great knowledge we have in internet for free, right? Everyone will be instant. This is genius, right? A planet full of geniuses. Is that the case? No. So AI is going to be transformative, of course, not only to the industries, to the market, job market, but also to countries, to the way of communicate and live, right? This is going to be big. How societies are going to react and adapt is to be determined, right? But we definitely have the power right now, everyone, to do the best they can that they couldn't before. It's like, yeah, do you want to be an influencer? No greatest time to that.
Right.
Today is the day. Do you want
Today
to be an
is the day.
engineer? Today is the day, right? On any kind, right? You want to learn anything, you could do it today, because the tools and the barriers are there, the barriers are dropped down, and it's crazy. But yeah.
Well, I bring up that little tool Code Dojo, which is really just a Claude Code. It's like a Claude MD file that like behaves like a coach. And I'm like, you can learn any programming language, and you don't have to get hung up on little things, because it's like having a one-on-one tutor always available to you at all times. And so I'm like, this is kind of great. This is amazing that before I'd have to sift through Stack Overflow, find all these ways. I'd have to read a whole book. I'd have to go through the examples, and I'd type the examples up by hand, and then there would be a problem with it. I'd have to go to Google to figure out what was wrong, or if this was even pre-Google, I'd have to like retype it again. Maybe there was a typo in the book. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. You bang your head against the wall for hours trying to find like one missing thing. And now, again, with the right prompting, that's why I say that Code Dojo is good, because it doesn't just give it to you, but it kind of puts you on the right path, and you'll still have to type it, but at least it's truly like having a one-on-one tutor. And the interesting thing that I explain to people is, like, I think about it in terms of athletics, right? Like for rock climbing. I grew up rock climbing, and we had one gym in the whole Long Island, and then otherwise you went outside. And the hardest climb in our gym at the time was like V4 like the hardest boulder problem in the gym. And maybe there was like a 510 or a 511 on rope. And then you'd go outside, and there were harder things that you could go out, but you could only make it outside only ever so often. Well, now there's a million gyms. There's 3 gyms on Long Island. There's 4 in the city. There are problems as hard as V12 in our gym. There's climbs as hard as 513 on rope. And I could try all of them. And these kids are so freaking strong. Now, did the human body just evolve in the last 15 years to become stronger? No, the training changed. And they're exposed, and they can train harder, faster than we ever could on effectively what are real climbs. And now you have all different moves and things happening. And I think the same thing for AI. I think that what you don't want is to let the agent just be writing the code for you. I said, if you're going to do that, you're not going to learn. But if you do use it like a tutor, 1 to 2 years of that is going to be the equivalent of what would have taken someone 10 years with going through books, sifting through Stack Overflow, reading documentation. So there are things you want to learn slowly, I think, in a slow sense. But there are other things where this is really like having the best tutor available to you at all times. And I think about it the same way that rock climbing training exploded. The human physique did not change in the last 15 years or 20 years. It's truly the training that got modified.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be an interesting time. What else? Let's I want to kind of, we know the tooling. Claude Code is kind of it right now. Have you tried Codex?
Yes, I have tried it. I have subscription for everything, but the expensive one that I have right now is Claude Code with the Pro plan, Max plan, 201, right? But I used to have the same plan for ChatGPT and for Codex, and I switched it back, right, to Claude Code, just because you could, in theory, you could configure your whole agentic coding, right, to be agnostic of the machine learning model or the provider that you are using. It doesn't matter, right? But at the end of the day, the tuning is going to make a difference, and the more native tunings will make a biggest difference, right? So I found that Claude Code is more predictable and reliable. The piece of their releases and their fixes is just outpacing everyone, right? They are this year in February they were 1 year old. February last year they become generable available, so they went public, and the gap in between when this was started and today, the quality increase is like, so I'm not, I'm not worshiping Cloud Code, but so far based on empiric experience, right? Factual experience, this is the best one. And yeah, I'm using things like you do. You could have Cloud Code in compact mode where he's just doing things. You don't know why. You don't see the trade-off. You don't see the details. But that's not what I want, right? And I have it in an explanatory mode where every time something happens, it gives you an explanation, right? It gives you like the summary of what was done, why was done, what is good, what is not. And I have advices and many other things there because I'm looking at it all the time, right? I'm expanding when he's using a tool and doing, I'm not sure, a database query, right? And seeing what are the queries being performed, right? And I have everything. In the beginning, I was crazy. I was passing, the credentials to that. No, there is better way. So right now I have environment variables, and it's just like, he just know the entity relationship model of the database. He just know that, okay, I need to, before the query execution, I need to pass to inject this environment variable that have the credential. That's it, right? So always follow the best practices, security first, right? But you could do everything there and learn how is that being done. When I'm doing troubleshooting, when I'm doing the planning phase before the implementation, I really spend a lot of time, like hours, on making sure I know what is going to happen. I have written down everything that I need to do in order to validate if this implementation was successful or not, right? So I'm not letting the AI to tell me, no, I'm done, and this is production ready, and trust me, right? No. When that happened, I'm literally seeing the end-to-end test, unit testing, integration test being written, passing, basically the quality gates are passing, right? And I'm pushing, okay, how meaningful is this, how that, and after I see all that working, right, I keep iterating. So I use the Chrome plugin, right, when I'm working with the front end to force Cloud Code. Okay, everything is dandy, right? Now you go logging into the application, right? I have skills for that, driving, okay, the secrets are here. Here is the password, the username, whatever, right? So he knows all that. Open a Chrome session, logging into the application, go and exercise the flow, happy path, sad path, edge cases, this and that. Check. Now you check in the database. These are the things that you should be doing, right? But you can save time by driving the conversation. You are watching what is going on. You are confirming that it's there. And you start, okay, now that you perform that, go to the database and check that all the records are properly created. And the guy is going to you, okay, these are the queries that we're going to perform. These are the results. You have a nice table there and you are checking, okay, yep. This guy make a payment to this subscription, is downgrade, upgrade, cancel. I see all the records. Pam. Now I trust you. Now let me check more details. But you keep pushing. You are not like, are you done? Really? How much time do you took to get that? All right. What? Crazy. Let's go. Production.
Yeah. It's true. No matter how badly, there are days when I'm like, man, I really just want to merge this thing. And it's like, but you got to take that due diligence. I think the end-to-end testing is something they've gotten better at. That was something that was really such a struggle. Like you said, using the browser extensions or even like being able to paste a screenshot now is way, way better. When I'm like, hey, the button alignment is off, it immediately knows what I'm talking about. Like that's the kind of stuff that Claude doesn't get right all the time, where I'm like, just like visual from like a UX UI standpoint, I'm like, that's a little off, and it'll just correct it. It figures it out. But you have to have the eye for that. That type of stuff too, I think, starts to come into play for engineers, where it's a little bit tougher, because sometimes now, like for us, I'm working without a designer a lot, but thankfully I have a UX background, so I could say like, listen, the line should be clean moving down the side of the page. The margin shouldn't be just like pushing out on one and on another. I'm going to check it in mobile. I'm going to check it in desktop. So I'll do all of that stuff to make sure that it's operational. But I noticed a lot of folks, they forget that. And they're like, oh, the output didn't work. I said, well, you still don't want to wait for your customers to find all the bugs. And trust me, when I'm talking about bug, it may not be functional. It may simply be like the button shows up below the URL bar, things like that. And Claude is still not going to check every device, every browser. You'll still want to, not that I do that either, but I open it on the phone. I open, I want to check all of these things to make sure I've saved a ton of time. But on the other end of that, let's make sure we're putting out the highest quality product possible. And then you don't have a giant, orange outage graph like GitHub has right now.
Yeah.
That is one thing I will say, that the 4 nines of availability, I don't know if that's AI related, but we've definitely seen that slip, it feels like, on the cloud providers. Now, I'm not sure if that's because of AI coding or because of AI like nefarious use cases where like AI can just like lay siege to different systems looking for ways to get into it that were not available to people before.
It's probably a mix of everything happening at the same time. Because again, look, the more advanced use of AI right now is happening in the 100 Fortune companies, right? They have the budget, they have the caution, right, to fail, to study or whatever. But they're still humans, right? Like us. They are making mistakes. They are going through a hard time to figure out, okay, yes, let's push the boundary, let's break things, but how bad is going to break? I don't know. Because there is a lot of complexity on everything that we build. So sometimes things slip, like everything, or on any situation in between the cracks. There is no way to avoid it, right? But at the end of the day, you go back to the foundations, right? The good practices, the good techniques, and you iterate. Something interesting that you mentioned is about designers, right? And designing. And it's funny because before I used to work with a designer for almost everything. And nowadays, I was like, I'm not a designer, right? But I fancy myself to have a good taste.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have that intuition, but I'm using, tools, super designs, plugins that are making sure, this is unique. This is following best practices. They're creating one of a kind, right?
Yeah. Close to one of a kind. It's tailwind of a kind, but it's close enough.
One of a kind, look and feel and all that kind of things, right? So, but the point is, using AI is making that possible to me, right? And using a super design CLI, Claude Code, and taking from the code, from the concepts, from the business, right? Whatever I want to achieve, and generating versions in plural of a potential workflow. And for something that I see is more complex or I don't like, okay, let's create variations. And then I decide, okay, I like that one. Let's explore or branch based on that. And then you keep driving that, right? And at the end of the day, you are checking, okay, I'm getting micro animations, transitions, usability problem resolved, and getting also all the accessibility resolved, right? And then it's just a matter of, okay, now I'm happy. We can refactor or implement with, a great deal of easiness. I'm not sure how to say it, but it's like, it's magic. This was impossible 1 year ago, right? And it's going to be even better. So right now, getting an idea and acting on that idea, validating it and implementing it and getting your first customer. Again, the gap before is more like, we are here. Now we are like, it's not that hard.
It's not. And that's like another thing I'll bring up, because I think a designer may watch this and say like, oh, well, you're saying designer jobs are going away. And I would say, no, my biggest clients are still using design to development process. They're still doing Figma. These are customers that would never have been able to build software before. And there is not the budget for 2 people to work on it. But I need the developer because the software has to be real. I can't just ship you off a clickable prototype. Like these people want to try and turn something into money. So you're right. Like the Tailwind UI, the Shad, that stuff is good enough and nice enough and beautiful enough for them to get it to a place where eventually that might be a company that does get a UX designer. But at day one, it wasn't really possible for them to be my client before. They would have had to have done something like they would have hired someone to do the Figma that was like a student. They would have had a clickable prototype. Then they would have gone on Fiverr and maybe tried to find someone for $5 an hour overseas to do the implementation. It would have kind of worked, but kind of not. And the whole idea would have just gone nowhere. And this was like the vast majority of people on a budget would have been stuck with that kind of a workflow. So I always tell people, if you're like a super pro and you're really good at what you do, the customers I'm talking about are customers that just were not serviceable before. And like you couldn't do it. You couldn't make a living servicing these folks, and now you can. So I'm very hopeful that like the software industry, I'm actively seeing it grow by virtue of more people being interested in being a part of it and having it accessible to them.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think I said the point. Anyone in theory and in practice, many people with no training whatsoever, with really not knowing a programming language or whatever, right, are creating solutions and making a living out of that, right? And that gap is going to close again. This is going to be something amazing. Will software engineer will still have jobs, right? I think yes, because complex systems, right, requires serious knowledge, serious skill, and there is no solution. There is no AI, and I don't think it's going to happen in the next 10 years. That can't go and say, okay, give me, I'm not sure, a couple of $1,000s, to run myself, and in a few hours or weeks, right, I'm going to give you Facebook or Instagram or Netflix, right? Because you could build a lot of things today, but that is not enough. How do you sell it?
Yes.
That's another big deal, right? How do you get that? It's like, anyone can create, or bake a bread. Now, is everyone going to pay you for that? No.
That's the challenge.
So there are many things that we need to resolve.
People ask me, like, what keeps you up? What makes it? I go, forget about the software. I was like, listen, even before AI, I had building software down. It's getting customers, earning business, building things people want. That's still hard, and AI is not really helping very much with that because AI can't just buy my software. Although you do see people, they do these like YouTube farms with like the phones all over the walls, just like viewing their channels to try and drive up the ad revenue and stuff. That's what it feels like. I was like, listen, you could maybe get a bunch of bots to like fake buy your stuff. I don't know, but to sell to real people is still a challenge. So it's crazy.
Yeah.
So
well, it's going to be interesting.
We've been going about an hour, and so we're hitting the end here. And what I love to ask people is, if you had one piece of advice for new software engineers, what would that be today?
That's a difficult question to answer, right? So I'll try to be brief. But at the end of the day, you cannot give your back to the past, right? And the past is classic software engineering. You need to know your stuff. You need to study, right? Like today, we are studying ancient Greeks books, from medicine to everything in every industry, and we're still learning and we're still figuring out or understanding things that before were not understood. The same is going to happen with every industry, including software engineering. But you need to be learning how to figure out what is real and what is hype, right? Because there are a lot of things, a lot of tools, a lot of techniques today that are not they doesn't scale. They are not sustainable. They are not applicable to everything, right? So the skills that we need to learn today are those general skills like, okay, we need CI/CD for everything, or we need QA automation for everything, right? How do you apply it? That is the same everywhere. What do you do to apply it is going to be different with every programming language, frameworks, industry, because liability, compliances, and this and that. Great, right? But you have the foundations about classical software engineering. You have the foundation of what it means to deliver high quality production and enterprise software. You can be successful anywhere, right? The rest is, it's good to be updated and but not in the bleeding edge side, right? You need to be in the cutting edge, safe enough to innovate, but secure enough to deliver, right? To don't have a big fall, because making mistake is important, it's part of life, is unavoidable. But there are mistakes that you don't have returning point, right? So that's it. It's like you need to be methodic, right? Study, work hard, experiment in a safe way. Always follow the good practices. Always try to find things that augment you, right? Like plugin, skills, configurations, tools, things that can protect you from what you don't know, right? Right now, for instance, to land this plane, what I am doing, even when I have tested, I have reviewed it, I invest a lot of time in the planning and in the validation, right? I still going through the automated review process using AI, right? So I have security agents checking for everything. I have architecture, clean code, whatever. All that we normally expect in a outstanding solution. I have an agent doing that in an automated way. But I don't do it with only one agent. I use Claude Code, I use Copilot, and I use Code Rabbit, 3 independent machine learning models and providers, and you see the concepts and methodologies, right? And at the end of the day, they all give me different feedbacks, right? Over time, those feedback has been more accurate. But what I am doing is trying to invest in AI in a secure way. So when I go through that filter, right? When I go through inclusive, so even in my CI/CD, right? I have a GitHub action that is checking for documentation, because I want to keep the documentation up to date, and it's a living document, right? Great, that's the goal. Even that is being checked. And how do I do it? Because I have all the augmentation that I don't need to be a DevOps expert today to say, okay, it would be cool to do this. Done, right? It's there.
Right.
I iterate, improve it, but I keep it, right? So I only go and review a peer engineer review after all those checks pass, after he addressed all the CI feedbacks, or he answered it, right? Because not everything is accurate, or not everything is needed. That's fine. But you can see the level of efficiency in this process, right? It's a funnel that when something is almost ready to be merged and released, you have a high degree of confidence that this is good, right? Not because it was done by AI, it's because we put a lot of engineering effort, skills, and experience behind that to create processes, right?
The process is key. I always remember. I remember that even when we worked together, like you were big on process then, and it's even more important now, because that doesn't change. Mm-hmm. And so the next question I ask people is, any books you're reading now that you recommend to people, either now or in the past?
Well, right now I'm reading a book. It's a government book. Nothing relevant for most everyone is, unless you are trying to win government contracts. But
it's an insider's guide to winning. Is that what it was called?
Yes. Did you read it? Because
no, I just saw the title. It's called An Insider's Guide to Winning Government Contracts. Yeah, you're going hard, dude. Let me tell you, I've given up on the government contract route. I would love to, but God, I guess with AI maybe it would work, but I'll tell you, I talk about what's harder than getting customers: winning government contracts.
No. This is a long time. I'm not sure. It's a game that takes time, right? You need to invest a lot, not only in preparing, pursuing the contract, right, but also getting certification, all that kind of things. But the funny part of this book is that it doesn't only talk about the government contracts, right? In fact, this is a compilation of business lessons, right? How to talk with clients, how to win clients, how to convince us, how to negotiate, how to have a difficult conversation, right? How to say no when something is going south and you are competing against people that are low balling, but you know if you go down, you are going to lose in the long run, right? Because there is no way you are going to win. You are not going to even break even. You are going to lose money on this real, right? So there are a lot of insights on this kind of book that apparently are focused on, this is for someone that is trying to win a government contract. Yes, that's the main goal, but not only that, right? So this is good because at the end of the day, we should all look for financial freedom, right? And we are in this path of acquiring wisdom and knowledge, and eventually you should start building your own systems. One winner that you have, like, is winning the lottery, right? But realistically speaking, it's going to be a journey. You are going to build multiple things. Some will fail, some you are trashed, right? Some make it, and you create eventually a portfolio of applications that produce a good income flow.
That's right. Right? It takes a long time. We were looking today. I was like, I got like 9 different applications that we've got going now, and they all have varying degrees of success and unsuccess. None are producing what I want, but it's a very long. It's a journey because it changes overnight. It's like the podcast. It really like it. We were doing it last year. Justin was doing it himself, and then it seemed like overnight, boom, it just started exploding. And now we have 120,000 subscribers on YouTube, and it's just that only happened in about the last 2 months. So
but it's not overnight. It's not overnight.
You didn't see the last 5 years of trying and posting and figuring it out, and so it's a very big journey. You just got to have faith in the whole process. So it is what it is. But Raul, before we leave, I want to know where can people find you?
Well, I'm not a public person like you. Hopefully one day I'm going to be like my bestie.
I know LinkedIn. We'll get your LinkedIn linked. Are you on X or Instagram, anything like that?
No, TikTok? No. I quit Instagram and Facebook, all that, right? But I'm getting back. So my main place today is LinkedIn. So if you want to find me there, I always love to have these kind of conversations, to be challenged, right? So I can grow and learn more.
Amazing. That's what we'll link to. I agree with you. I have like a no new social media in my life thing. Like I'm like, listen, I just don't want to be on another platform. When Facebook released Threads, I was like, no thanks. I was like, had nothing against Threads. Blue Sky, no thanks. I was like, I just don't want another platform. I was like, I definitely don't want to host my own platform. That's for sure. I was like, the social media I have is what I'm gonna run with.
Absolutely.
Anyway, Raul, it was great catching up, and we'll have to do this again soon.
Thank you, Mike. Have a great day. See ya.
And just